We're waiting. We're waiting to see if I'm live yet. Oh, okay, great. We're live. Oh, goodness. Hi, everybody. I think we're live. Um, so today I decided I'm Sam. I'm behind the scenes. Sometimes I make appearances, but I'm Sam. In case you don't know for some reason, the other Sam couldn't make it tonight, so I decided I was gonna swoop in and save the day as usual, which that doesn't happen. But anyway, But anyway, today we are going to be interviewing one of my very close friends who you last saw in Little Women. But before we do that, I have some announcements I want to make. First off, Good People at Torrance Theater Company is going to be happening next Sunday. So make sure you can go on Facebook and look up Torrance Theater Company. They're going to have all the information on there. But that's going to be next Sunday, August 9th. And one of our members, Melody Rivers, is in the cast. So I can't wait to see that. I'm sure it's going to be really great. Also, coming up, we have a new announcement. Little Renegade Productions is having their inaugural production of the play She Kills Monsters Virtual Realms. We're going to have more details about that in future live streams, so make sure that you tune in and watch that. For our last announcement, Markham Masks are coming up, which is one of my favorite times of the year. The award ceremony is going to be on August 15th at 5 p.m. It's going to be completely virtual. If you want to RSVP, make sure that you email vp@kentwoodplayers.org and just let them know the names and the number of people that are going to be in your watch party. It's going to be a full buffet of all the food in your kitchen, and then pants are optional as long as you don't stand up. So it's going to be really exciting, and there's going to be lots of fun parody videos, which are my favorite parts of all the shows we've done in the past season, and also some great awards. And there's also, wait a minute, there's going to be an after party after, hosted by Mama Lou Soul, I think I said that right, and I'm a Hot Mess. So you don't want to miss that. It's going to be really exciting. So make sure you put it on your calendar, August 15th at 5 p.m. So now we're going to get into the meat of, that was weird, the meat of today's live stream. I am a disaster compared to Samantha, apparently. So you last saw him in Little Women last winter as Laurie. He was freaking amazing. He is a great actor. He's also a guitar player. He's a world traveler, which we're going to be talking about a lot today. He is a study abroader. He is also, in his words, a former child star living under the shadow of his mother. So I'm really excited to hear about that. I would like to welcome on my good friend Dylan LaRocque.
Hello,
Hi, there he
Sam.
is. How are you? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm doing great. Just living in the times that we're living in.
Of course, as we all are. So I want to just get straight into it, and the way that we usually start this is I want to start with your origin story. How did you initially get started with theater in this crazy world in the first place? Because I know you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. Well, initially from a very young age, I wanted to be a baseball player. And that was my life goal. I wanted to emulate Derek Jeter. That was my life's goal. And one day, at my elementary school, my close friend Travis, shout out to Travis, he said, we're doing this like production of this old play, Midsummer something. You want to come see it? And I was like, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
why not?
Weird.
And
It sounds kind of like weird.
yeah, it's not very known,
Niche.
but
Niche.
yeah. So yeah, I went that night, and the rest was kind of history. I remember my mom kind of looking at me like, uh-oh, this is interesting. And I mean, like before that, there was always, days when I would go out in my backyard and I'd like make up stories, as probably every kid, did. But I think that was the moment where I was like, oh, wow, this is something I really want to do. And so I signed up for the summer, I think it was the summer program. Yeah, it was a summer program, and they did Anything Goes. And I played the purser at age 7 or 8, something like that. So that was really fun. And ever since then, I was in most of all of their shows at my elementary school. It was called it was called Rainbow Kids, and then it changed into LAYT, which was Los Angeles Youth Theater, at the Open School which is near the Kenwood.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so that's kind of just how it started, and it just kind of never left. It was never really a question of, if this was something that I wanted to do. It was just sort of a question of how.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I feel like it kind of a lot of people fall into kind of two camps. Some people are like, I knew since I was 6 years old and
Yeah.
just kind of never went away from it. And then there are some people who are, not that I'm of an ancient age at 20, but there are some people kind of like me who just kind of just fell into it somehow and
Yeah. Yeah.
overlapped. So I think it's always kind of interesting to see the kind of people who fall into either one, because I feel like you can't even like predict like with
No, you can't. Yeah.
how long somebody's been doing theater.
Yeah.
It's definitely something we've reiterated on this show a lot, is that you can do this at any age. You can either be doing it from 5 years old like you did, or you can start it when you're 60 if you want.
Yeah.
Great. So I know that you also started Kentwood at a quite young age.
Yes, I did.
I have been going through some of the archival pictures, and I have seen your face come up a couple of times. That was very young. So
Yeah.
how did you initially hear about Kentwood, and what kind of drove you there?
So I was doing a production at LAYT of Fiddler on the Roof, and one of my friends, Hannah, who was in it, was doing this, production of Little Green Men, and they were like, "Oh, we're looking for, two young kids, boys." And I remember her mom came up to my mom, was like, "Would, Dylan be interested in this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I went, and I got cast in this world premiere production of a written play that is now, or I guess was, because of R.I.P. Samuel French. It's in Samuel French, the original production, and it was actually really fun to do it. I didn't know at the time how big a deal it was to sort of create a play, but we were literally creating as we went along, and the writer Scott Martin, I want to say, yes, I think it's Scott Martin. We're gonna say it's Scott Martin, but I might be wrong. But he would come in every day with different things, and I remember one day we were asked to record the live, or not the live, but the soundtrack for it. And that was like my first time in a recording studio, and I was like, oh wow, so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a big thing in my life, that at the time I was just like, oh, it's it's a show, it's time to have fun. But I was a part of an original cast creation of
You're originating the
Men.
role.
And then ever since then, sort of my mom, Joanna Churgan, she's been involved heavily with the Kentwood. Some would call her the Queen of the Kentwood, and I would have to agree with that.
I agree with that. She's
yeah. And so she's been doing it, and I've supported her heavily always. She's kind of been a huge inspiration of mine, ever since I started. I went, we kind of started at the same time. She started back up acting around the same time that I started acting, and we were sort of, kind of each other's like cheerleaders, I guess, is what you say. We'd always help each other out. And yeah, I've always gone to Kentwood shows and everything, and and then I think the only other time was I was Little Women, and it was I heard about it, and I was like, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity. And so I emailed, and I was like, would it be okay if I send in an audition? I was not in LA at the time, so I wanted to make sure that it'd be okay. And like, but yeah, so they were like, yeah, sure, send in an audition. And I was like, oh, great, perfect. And then yeah, Little Women happened, and I was like, oh wow, I'm back at the Kentwood,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So Little Women was actually your first show that you had been a part of at Kentwood since Little Green Men?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Any other time I was just there to support my mom.
Yeah, I mean, I've acted with your mom, and a lot of other people we've had on this show has acted with your mom.
Yeah.
She's really fantastic.
Yeah.
How has how you mentioned that you kind of started acting when your mom restarted acting, and have you guys acted together? What has that kind of affected your relationship in any kind of way? Not
Yeah, like sometimes we get the opportunity. We did um oh, I
not in a
can't.
bad way, just like how has it like kind of made the dynamic between you two kind of interesting and unique?
I think it's just like we're sort of just. I mean, we're kindred spirits in the fact that we're very alike. But in the fact that acting wise, it just sometimes it. I don't know. We have something sometimes to talk about. There's also just like she'll do a show, and sometimes it's that thing of like sometimes you'll come home and you'll have a tough day with rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
We have each other to be like, hey, it's okay, you're amazing, like don't worry about it and everything. So it's sort of like like I said, it's like a cheerleader type of relationship. Whenever one of us is in a show, we heavily support the other, and yeah, it's a great relationship to have.
Right. That must be like really nice to have. That it's like you have a parent there who like really specifically understands what it's.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think most of my family was in the theater world at some point or another. My dad was in theater in college, and then he went into filmmaking and everything. So he's still kind of in that world. Whereas my brother, he did a production of Oliver when he was in like fourth grade or something, and that was like the last thing he ever did. But I think we've all sort of been hit with the theater bug, if you
Yeah.
will, and sort of, yeah, so we all have an understanding of what that's like.
Yeah, that's it's crazy. It's like some people it's just this like it's the whole I don't know, it's like in your blood or something.
There's a yeah.
It's like something just different, you know?
Yeah.
So have you that actually made me think how much film work do you do compared to like the theater work that you do?
Not a lot actually. I've done a couple like amateur student films. My acting teacher, we were still trying to get it on its feet. There was a script that she wrote that she wanted to get out there, and we filmed like a trailer for it, and we're still trying to do that. But like the only other like screen work that I've ever done is at Lambda. We had a screen sort of class. We had a class to introduce us into how to screen act, because when you're going to a theater school, you also want to know how to be able to turn on that screen acting part as well, so that if you ever get that opportunity, to go in there, to sit down, don't use all of that, and just use whatever is here in the little box.
Definitely. That segues perfectly into what I was about to. Inspired. I know for those who don't know, Dylan here to Lambda, and I want to. What inspired you to go across the world to study the theater?
It wasn't really a thought of mine. It was like we had the college list, and there were the top two for me. There was a PCPA, and then there was CalArts. And I remember one day while we were going through these lists, my dad said, what about like London? You know, and I was like, sure, put it on there. There's absolutely no way that I'm ever gonna, get into one of these schools. It's like trying to get into Juilliard. But I was like, sure, why not? It's an experience. So yeah, we did that. I went to the audition and I was very nervous. I had no idea what to expect.
Wow.
And you walk in there and there's the head of the theater department, Rodney Cotier there, who's just a doll of a man. Love him so much. Knows so much Shakespeare. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so we did the monologue, and then I did another one. I think I did a comedic monologue, and then he asked me if I had anything different, and I was like, actually, I do. And I think I have to thank my acting coach, Lee Floden, for that, because the day before, I think it was on the day that morning, she was like, why don't we put something in your back pocket in case he asks for something? And I was like, okay, sure. So I had a monologue, stowed away, and he asked, and I was like, actually, yes, I do. So I did that. And then the funny thing was, he asked me, he said, so what do you think this is about? And, I said it to the best of what I had envisioned the monologue to be about. And he just went, yeah, no, that's wrong. And he goes, we Brits are brutally honest. And I was like, oh no, please. Like, if I'm off track, like, please let me know. But yeah. And then it was just like a conversation. And then, as soon as I left the door, I was like, okay, wow, that was an interesting experience, and it was great to just sort of have that on the table. And then I remember I got a call after I had toured Cal Arts. I got a call that I was called back, and they were like, do you want to come to New York for callbacks? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So then it was a distinct possibility that I could be going to this school in London. And I was like, okay, this is something. So I really, pushed my nose to the grind and sort of really worked hard and did what I had to do. And, I went in and felt really good about what I did. We had a great conversation afterwards. It was funny. They said, so you're in London, you hate the Brits hate you. What do you do? And I was like, wow, that's a very interesting question. And I remember I was like, well, I think I would need to take a little, take a sidestep and realize that there's, a bigger thing going on than just, petty whatever and whatnot. And they were like, interesting. And then, yeah, I think it was maybe a week later, my dad said, oh, we missed a phone call from this weird number. And I was like, what was it? He was like, I think it was London. I was like, what? And we were on our way. I was on my way to school that day. And I remember we spent at least 25 minutes in the car trying to contact London, because we couldn't do it. We basically had to pay $25 for a phone call. And we were like, but then, yeah, I was like shaking. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And, my dad was like, here, call. And I was like, okay, fine. And I called, and, and then Rodney answered the phone. He said, is this Dylan? And I said, yes, this is Dylan. He's like, did I catch you at an inopportune time? And I was like, no, I'm just, going to school, but it can wait. He's like, yeah, we'd like to offer you a place at the 3-year program at Lambda. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, cool. He was like, would you like to? And I was like, yeah, I'd like that very much, please. So yeah, then it was, it was kind of, surreal to me until I think the week before I moved I was, packing all my bags and doing all this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going up to London. This is crazy. And then, yeah, it's just 3 years of my life in a completely different place, learning, what I love and, how to do it and how to, how to hone it. And I was really thankful for those 3 years. They taught me so much of who I am now as a person, as well as who I am as an actor. And
Definitely. I feel like sometimes people kind of discount like film school or theater school because I go to film school and you went to theater school. And I think that they have their value in the fact that you're really learning not only what you want to do, but I think the kind of stories you want to tell, right?
yeah,
So
it's,
I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
before I went to school, I knew kind of generally the kind of stories I wanted to tell. But as I've been going through college, I'm like, it's getting a lot more specific for me for what I want to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and then I want to ask you, how do you feel that going to Lambda and going to theater school, especially in London compared to, not even just here, how has that impacted your career as an actor?
It's I don't know. It's because I went to a an arts high school, so it's all, there's different, so it's, but I don't know, going to a theater school in London, it I think it opened my mind as to what I wanted to do, because I sort of had this vision of sort of what I wanted and what I wanted to do in theater and in film and TV, and they sort of, they take you in. I mean, especially with the Americans, because there's only like seven, I think there's only 7 Americans admitted to the 3-year course. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was yeah. And they're very nurturing, like sort of in your first year. It's like the transition of like, okay, you're in a different place, we do things differently here.
Mhm.
And then they're like, okay, now let's get down to brass tacks here. What do you want? And it was just like learning all these different things, like, uh Alexander technique. I'd never heard of that before. I didn't know what that was, and that changed so much of, what you do on stage, because you realize, oh, if I'm playing a certain character, I need to stand a certain way to feel that. I can't just, and
Yep.
some roles you have to do kind of, strenuous things with your body, and Alexander technique helps you, you know open your body up after that. And if I hadn't had that, I'd be probably in a full body cast. But yeah, I think it's just shaped me to be a much more open actor than I was. To it also taught me to listen more. That was sort of my problem when I first got to Lambda. Was, we'd be doing a scene and I'd spit straight into my lines, and they were like, no, listen to what they're saying and then say what you want to say. It's like, okay. And yeah, I think that's really helped me as an actor, so that when I'm in a scene with another person, I can really just connect with them while they're talking to me, and I can, let their words affect me before I try and, affect them with what I have to say. And it just opened me up. Um, we did I think it was a mask session. We did a mask session, and I remember the teacher. We had like different age masks, and I think I was one of the last to go up, and there was like middle age or like child baby mask. And it was so weird, because I think it was like our first or second year or something, and like we barely know each other kind of, and he just goes, yeah, you know which one you want, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And I just like took this like child mask, and it just, I don't know, you look at yourself in the mirror and then you sort of do what you would do as a child. And I went through this entire story arc, and afterwards he was like, so how was that? And I was like, I'm a mess. I have emotions that I never knew I had. Like, and yeah, it just, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, look, nobody, everybody outside of the kind of theater and film world doesn't realize how freaking hard acting is.
Oh yeah.
There are so many things that you have to learn that you do just innately as a person and the way that you behave that you're not thinking of on a daily basis, but you have to at least be aware of as an actor.
Yeah.
You know, just focusing in, and I don't have to tell you this. It's just this is why they're paid so freaking much whenever they're very high up there, you know?
Yeah.
So when you were back up a little bit, when you were in high school, was there any doubt in your mind that this is where you wanted to go? Not specifically Lambda, but just theater in general.
There were a couple days when I'd be like, this is not what I want. And, you know, I'd come home and be like, I hate it because all the teachers are just asking me to do things and I don't want to do it. So like I had my days where I was like, I don't know if this is what I want, but then I'd think and I was like, I don't really know anything else. Like this is what I do. This is sort of who I am as a person. This is what I identify with. And, you know, that sort of thing of back to that interview with Lambda, you know, realizing that there's something bigger and realizing, you know, who I am and really trying to go for that. And, you know, it's hard in an arts high school because, you know, you have high school for, you know, half the day and then you have the arts. So you're kind of like torn between, and there's like a hard thing that you have to do of trying to like eliminate the school day before you go into like the arts day.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's yeah.
How does that work? Because I went to a fairly traditional high school in terms of like the grand scheme of things. So how does like going to like an art school, I guess, affect your, you know, viewpoint? I don't know. Just like how do you feel that that's different than going to like a traditional high school?
I mean, well, everyone's there for what they want to do. So it was Locke to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. And they have the theater program, music program, voice program, dance, and visual arts. So, you know, there's all sorts of people there, and you get there at around like 8:15 in the morning, and you do, you know, your classes. You do your math, your history, all that stuff. And then after lunch at around 2 to 4, you do theater, or you do, you know, whatever you want. And sort of as it progressed through, you know, year to year, it became less about classes and more about shows, because the higher up you went, it was sort of like you only had one show for the year, but, you know, senior year, it was all about the show that we were going to put on at the end of the year. And so I think it's like, you know, from 8 until 12, you're sitting there taking notes, and you're like, okay, econ. And then you go, God, I want to be in acting class. So it's a hard thing, but, you know, you got to, you know, get through it, because, you know, and also some people don't have that, you know, opportunity. Sometimes they have to go outside of their, you know, academic, you know, curriculum to find what they want to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, kudos to them, because I had it where I could just go from one to the other simultaneously. But yeah, it definitely helped me for that transition into this just like big thing of, we're going to be doing what you want 12 hours a day for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes 6, like,
yeah.
And yeah, I was like, okay, wow. And it was a big transition, but I think my, you know, my LOXA training helped me for that transition.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think definitely I just said that word twice. Anyway, I think going from that kind of doing what you want to do in high school, which first off, I think that arts needs to be available in all high schools, because in reality, it's not.
Yeah.
And I think it's ridiculous. That's a whole nother question. But I think arts is so important for development, and I think it's just as important as learning math or English
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
history. And those things are important. But I think learning any form of art, whatever it is incredibly important, and a lot of people don't get that. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I think definitely if I, going from like a traditional high school to being like going to film school was definitely like a big jump because for me it was like I didn't really have any kind of those classes in high school, but for
Yeah.
you, like you at least had a little bit of that. Okay, this is what we're doing. Like I'm doing what I want to do every day,
Yeah.
and this is what I kind of want to do for ever. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really great. This is an amazing opportunity that you had,
Yeah.
and I think that you definitely took advantage of it.
Hmm.
I think that's also just a really important part because people get those opportunities and then they don't really take them. But I think you
Yeah.
definitely took them. So I want to shift focus to the process. And what I want to start with is, I guess the beginning is whenever you are in regular times attracted to an audition or a show or a role, what is that thing that kind of initially interests you in a particular role?
I
Or is
think,
it just kind of I'll take whatever and
well, I mean, right now in the kind of times we're living in, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like I'll take whatever I can get. But if I'm being a little bit more picky choosy, I think it's someone, it's someone real. It's I mean, like back in high school, I thought it was, it would be, CW. It was all leading towards sort of the CW troubled characters, But I think now it's more someone who, has something to say and knows what they want and really, and the last couple things I auditioned for were, sort of older siblings trying to help their younger sibling. And I was really drawn to that because I come from a family where I am the younger sibling, and sort of to shift into that sort of older helpful person was really interesting for me.
yeah,
Um and yeah, and just sometimes anything, that's fun or anything. Like I remember I did Little Women when I was 14, and I didn't really understand what, what Lori was kind of going through
right.
at the time. And then, to be given the opportunity to do it again, knowing what I know now as like a 23-year-old, I was like, oh wow, this character has so much more depth in him than just being the kid next door.
Definitely.
And yeah.
Absolutely. So I have a question because I just need to. It's an interview, of course. I have a question. This is only my like second time doing this. So whenever you do decide, okay, this is kind of the role I want to go for, whether it's because oh it's fun or this is like oh this is a dream role of mine. What kind of preparation do you do before an audition to make yourself feel comfortable going in? About as comfortable as one can be going into an audition.
Well, funnily enough, we had a class in Lambda on this, which was Audition Prep, and we sat in a room
Great.
and we basically, well, we had to sit outside of the room and sort of because you're learning all these different techniques and all these different things, like of warming up your voice and warming up your body, and then in your third year, your teachers kind of go off and do it, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself, in a room and you're like, oh God, I'm tense. Maybe I need to do like a spine roll or something, or, maybe I need to, do some chews to get my articulation going. And that also kind of helps you get out of your head of like, there's all these different people who, the story you walk in, you're like, well, they're just clones of me. Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it just kind of helps because you're in your own world. And, people might look at you and be like, what is that guy doing? He's like rolling his spine on the floor and crying. What is he doing? But like, you're in your own mindset and you're doing, because I used to see that. I used to see people, talking into a wall. And I was like, that's so dumb. But like, now I'm like, I get it. You don't want to be in this room. You want to be
Yeah.
away from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am still working because I have not been doing this as long as you have. I'm still working on how do I go into an audition and not feel like I need to be perfect or I need to feel like
Yeah, I mean, it's just
I, I think it's just I feel like that's good advice is just use, shut everything out and just like
yeah,
focus on you and kind of just get ready. And then something that's also helped me was like I think Samantha told me this is like stop seeing auditions as a job interview because I've seen a lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
people say look at an audition as a job interview. She said look at it as a performance because
yeah.
that's
That's
what you
yeah.
love doing is performing. Nobody
Hmm.
likes interviewing for jobs. You like
Yeah,
performing, and I think when we get back to normalcy or our whatever new normal is,
yeah,
um, I want to take that advice and I want to take your advice and kind of just shut everything out and be like, okay, I'm gonna go just perform. You know.
yeah, yeah.
So let's say hypothetically you book the role. So what's the prep work that you do over the course of the next several weeks for you to get ready for the role? Or if it's, film, it's however long you have until the shoot. Do you have like a kind of process that you go through? Is there something that you learned in
I think we'll
school, or is you just kind of like, I'm gonna wait for the director to tell me? And
I think it's sort of a mesh of different things. I kind of, because I don't want to go into it feeling like I have everything and I know everything, because then, you kind of shut other ideas out and you're kind of like just this one thing. So, I kind of like to, if there's material on it, like Little Women, I read the book and I was like, oh wow, this character has so much depth and just so much. And then, trying to incorporate that into, this script where you can't do all of that. You can't, show that he, loves Joe or, everyone in the first couple scenes that span over, years. It's like 5 minutes that span over,
right,
years.
you don't have the 500 pages of the book.
No, you
You
do
have
not. You do not.
several scenes that you're in to
And
make
so, and
thing.
it's just about finding those moments, where maybe you're not talking, to look at the March sisters and be like, wow, I feel like I'm a part of a family. And, and then, collaborating with, the director and everything. And, saying, having those moments of like, I thought of this the other day, like we can try this. And they're like, yeah, sure. Why not? Um,
I love just
yeah,
shooting
I
things. That's
I
my
don't know
thing.
that I have a particular process. I kind of just go in with the open mind and sort of kind of just learn as I go.
Yeah.
And then, you know, whatever comes out, I guess comes out.
Yeah. I think especially what you said about looking if you're whatever you're doing is based on source material, I think that's
Yeah.
such a valuable tool that you really need to use. Or if you're doing something that's historical, is looking at the context
Yeah,
that
that's
you're
yeah.
doing. Like it's so important to know the context of what's happening because nothing happens in a bubble.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about we've kind of mentioned it several times before about that weird thing that's happening right now called the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I first off want to ask, were you involved in anything before the pandemic? Have you been involved in anything since? What's been
I
the
was in a production of uh trying to I don't want to mess up the group name. So I'm okay.
about 5 years ago at this point, so
CSHP's production of Hands on a Hard Body, which is actually a very interesting show. It took place. It was based on a real thing that happened in Texas. It was a hard body competition. So I think it was Nissan. They were low on funds or something, so they decided to have this competition where people put their hands on a truck, and whoever's the last person standing wins the truck.
that's
And
just
it went on for like 8 days.
Oh my gosh. I was
Like,
thinking it was like, oh, like 24 hours and then people
no,
tap
8
out.
days. 8 days of just excruciating pain and delusion. And there's a I think there's a documentary on it.
Oh
Yeah,
my
there's a
gosh.
documentary on it. It's
That's
really
amazing.
interesting. So yeah, I was yeah, that was something that was, it was coming down. Hopefully we can get back to it once the world gets back to
Definitely.
also I've just uh been added to a virtual production of Carrie, which we're
Ooh.
to film and then put out Halloween. So
Ooh, that's really awesome.
so hopefully that and also I am currently um in the works for Little Renegade production of She Kills Monsters virtual reality
Virtual ones.
realms. That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not acting in that, but I am on the creative team, and I'm really excited.
I'm gonna tell everybody a little secret. I am acting in it. So
Oh,
so I am absolutely, once it is safe for production to come back, I have to see Hands on a Hard Body because that sounds hysterical
it is. It's
insane.
very funny.
And I definitely have to see that. And then I will definitely let people know about Carrie because it's a really kind of a niche show, despite the fact that the source material is really well known. It's not done
Yeah.
very often, but it's like it when it's done right,
Yeah, when it's done
it's a
right.
good
Yeah.
one. It's a good
It
one.
should be interesting to see virtually how it all comes together.
Yeah, and I feel like side sidetrack because my mind has a million tabs open. I feel like Carrie with the whole themes of bullying and everything, like maybe they could do something with like how was
Cyber,
that
yeah.
in 2020, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yeah.
um, on that note, how have the Zoom productions kind of been for you? What's your thoughts about the Zoom productions?
They, I think I've only ever done one, and it was really good. It was, it's really fun, and I got to do it with my mom, so
Oh, nice.
in the house together, and it was, but like I take, acting classes, and that's, it's kind of just getting used to a new normal, kind of,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's
Hopefully not for much longer, but
hopefully, but
we'll
yeah,
see.
but yeah, it's, at least we're still, doing what we love. We didn't give up.
Definitely. I think it's people aren't gonna just give up.
No.
Too many people love theater too much. We're gonna find ways to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just because that's how we are. That's our
Yeah.
job. So I kind of want to start wrapping it up. You've given such first off such great insight and such great I loved hearing everything about you at Lambda and how you started and really it's really interesting stuff. Um, But to kind of wrap it all up, do you have any kind of favorite theater memory that you have? It doesn't have to be particularly with acting. It could be a show that you saw, anything.
I have kind of two based on the way the question. So when I was 9, I was cast in a production of Fiddler on the Roof as Tevye. And
Wow.
yeah, 9-year-old playing Tevye.
That's awesome. I love that.
It's ridiculous, but it was probably the most fun I'd ever had in a show. It
Really?
was so fun to just, I don't know, be up there, and it was kind of the first time I ever realized, oh wow, this is really fun.
Theater can do something.
Oh yeah, it was, and it's such a great story, and I watched like the movie like 1,000 times. I idolized, you know, that movie for so long. So that's a pretty fond memory of mine.
Yeah.
As well as I think it was the first time I ever saw Hamlet live.
Oh.
But I had been in an acting class before, and my teacher was like, "Do you want to do this speech?" And it was To Be or Not to Be. And I was like, no, not really.
Yeah.
It's kind of overdone. She's like, "Well, just see, what happens." And she kind of sat me down, and she was like, "Just put that question in your brain. like over and over and just ask the question. And I remember I went to see the Broads production of Hamlet, which was, I believe, a national tour of Hamlet. And I remember when that came, when, you know, that scene came, he just comes out and he just went, to be or not to be, that's the question. And I was just like, what? That easy?
You can do that?
There's no like anguish? And it just like opened my mind to, you know, to sort of acting and Shakespeare in general.
Yeah,
And I was like, whoa.
that's amazing. I love how like random. I just like how like specific that is. Like, it's just such a, even though that's such a well-known part, it's so specific in that you have a particular production and a particular time that you saw it, and you have
Yeah.
particular context. And I think that's, I feel like we all have kind of experiences like that where we just, there's just this one little seemingly insignificant moment that you're like, I get it now,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So kind of to shift gears a little bit, do you have any kind of on-stage debacles that you've had?
Um,
If you don't want to name names, you don't have
I
to.
do.
Like, it's all, we're all friends here.
I have a couple. There was back when I was in the LAYT, my last production at LAYT was Oliver. And I think it was our last production, our like final night. And Food Glorious Food, it started to get ramped up to like 11. So it was like just a bunch of like 13-year-olds just like running around a stage screaming.
Yeah.
So there was a platform and then there was the stage. So we kind of jutted the stage out a little bit. And I remember I was on the end, and I remember I was really into it, and I stepped off to the side and I was too far away. And I fell immediately into the orchestra being a pianist, a violinist, and like a drummer. But the violinist just jumps out and catches me and puts me straight back up on stage. And I was like, and I remember for like the rest of the song, I didn't sing. I was just like, what happened? What happened?
Oh my
And then
gosh.
for the rest of the show, everyone kept coming up to me being like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was fun.
That is hysterical and also absolutely terrifying. And I'm glad that you were okay after that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just amazing. It's like,
yeah,
that's hysterical. That's great. And that's theater. We say that every single episode, but like I feel like every single person's kind of debacle story is so different from everybody else's.
Oh yeah,
there's so many different things that can happen when it's live, and
yeah,
plan everything out, and there's still things that happen like that luckily usually you look back at and you kind of laugh at, you know. So I love these kinds of stories because it shows how unique this art form is. There's literally anything can happen, like a child falling into an orchestra pit.
Yep.
So finally, to wrap up today's interview, I feel like you've already given some good advice, but do you have any kind of specific advice that you give to other actors who are either new, like kind of I am, and then, or who've been doing this for their whole lives?
I think just, take every day as it is, especially now, as it's, it's kind of hard and we kind of, get like 7 steps ahead in our brains and we're like, when is thing now? And to also just be truthful in everything that you do. Like, take a moment, in a script, in a book, in whatever, in anything, and just, take a moment and go, that's real. That's a real moment. And to sort of, realize that and then, project it outward.
Yeah. That's great advice. I mean, you're right about, especially just right now, everybody just gets so definitely guilty of doing that. I overthink a lot of things, and there's so many moments where I have just been like, I don't want to do this anymore because I am
Yeah.
the worst person in the world. And then I have to kind of step back and be like, I just focus on what's going on right now. I can't
Yeah.
focus on what's happening, something I can't control. You know, there's a lot of things we can't control, and I've had to, you know, we're all learning to kind of realize that we can't control things and just to worry about what you control. And what
Yeah. And going back,
is just what you're doing right now. So yeah, it's definitely that's definitely advice that I'm gonna definitely take, and I think that's great. I feel like I'm reiterating myself 50. But I just want to thank you so much for taking the time tonight to for me to get to know you more and get to know about your career and your acting process and your stories that you've had because they were hysterical and also just really illuminating. And I think I every single episode that we do, I feel like I just learn a lot because I'm always behind the scenes. But today I'm kind of in person, so that was kind of
yeah.
fun. But I definitely want to thank you for your time tonight. And we are going to be back on, I believe we're going to be back on Sunday at 7 p.m. Right here on Zoom, Kentwood Players YouTube. I don't know exactly who we're going to have on Sunday, which means it's going to be a mystery. It's going to be a surprise. So you're going to have to subscribe to the YouTube channel and look out for that because you're definitely not going to want to miss it. It's going to be directors and designers. So we're either going to have a director or a designer or both. Who knows? We're gonna see. But I want to thank you everybody for watching. And Dylan, have a good night. And everybody who's watching, have a good night. And we'll see you on Sunday.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Okay. How do I end this? Here we go. This is still live, by the way.